Welcome to Think Social. I'm Kyriakos Gold, and today we're talking about social enterprise, social procurement, the state of the social sector in Australia, here in Sydney. Join me. Two years ago, we filmed I Think Social in Melbourne, and we had 50 social enterprises discussing what is going well for them, what is going wrong for them, what is social enterprise, and what is our wish list for our social sector. We are reconvening today in Sydney, and we're going to see where the sector is. We're going to start with Monique, and we're going to first do some definitions. What is a social enterprise?
Well, at Social Traders, we certify social enterprises, and when we do that, we're looking for three things. We're looking to see primacy of purpose. Does the enterprise have an embedded social, cultural or environmental purpose? We're looking for revenue from trade. Social enterprises are businesses like any other, and we want to see that they're sustainable and that they're not reliant on philanthropy or grants. And the third thing that we're looking for is that they reinvest their profit such that the public benefit is greater than the private benefit. So an organisation that donates 5% of its profits to a charitable cause, that's not it. Social enterprises are innovative businesses that have their purpose embedded all the way through to their constitution.
What is Social Traders? How long have you been around? For the people that are new to the sector or have just jumped online and said, let's listen to this discussion.
2018, we've been certifying social enterprises. We've certified over 1,000 during that time. Social Traders, we do three main things. We work with business and government to help them embed social performance and report on their impact. We work to certify and to strengthen social enterprise. And we advocate to government to support policy that supports social enterprise. That's a really key driver for demand. What we see is when organisations like John Holland are looking to win work from government, it's really compelling for them to have a really strong social performance footprint in order to position themselves well in terms of government policy around social procurement.
So you have two buckets. So you have the social enterprises and the buyers.
That's right.
And you're like the proxy maker.
Yeah, we're a little bit of a matchmaker. So we try to bring together the supply of these amazing businesses that do amazing work and have purpose embedded into the work that they do every day. And we work with business and government to be creating social impact through the power of procurement. We know that social enterprises value procurement contracts more than anything, but we also know that organisations are seeking to do good out in the world. That there's a business case for organisations to demonstrate social value creation. It's beneficial to their employees, it's beneficial to their clients, and it's beneficial to their shareholders. And what more efficient way do they have to create social value than by using money they're spending already? This is a really effective tool to be creating social value and to be meeting the needs of their shareholders, their stakeholders, their customers, and their employees.
So it's a really good bridge because we've been proudly certified by Social Traders since 2018. And one of the first businesses that we worked with was John Holland. And Mel is just next to me here. And it's a perfect opportunity to both thank John Holland for the support through all those years. And this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't that first opportunity within lockdown to work with Northwestern Program Alliance under the Level Crossings project that John Holland was leading. Give us the buyer perspective. Why do you do that? Is it just ticking a box or there's a bit of heart there as well?
For us, anyone in the social impact space, and this is what I really love, is everyone's really passionate about the story behind why someone has created a business. So we love to see when we have people who are social workers, people who have been in domestic violence shelters that have actually sat down, created a business and said, all right, this is now a social enterprise, this is what we do, this is how we're going to help the community. As a buyer, we don't have that direct impact where we can go in and we can support people to that level. But when we see what social enterprises do, we know that that is something that is so easy for us to support. It's quite interesting because I think sometimes when you're getting to commercial teams, they just want to look at a business from a commercial aspect. But every single project we've worked on, the commercial teams always do a massive turnaround, and they really get into that hearts and minds side of it.
If I can say, you're jumping into a big new role next week. What is the plan? It's head of social impact at John Holland.
Yes.
So what is the strategy of, can you share anything with us? Where is the company going, and what are the trends for buyers?
Yeah. So what I would love to see is, and this is what we're going to work on, is getting a more streamlined process for each state. So what we're seeing is that sometimes government clients are asking for bits and pieces in different states. We want to make sure that we're supporting businesses. It's very easy to support the large businesses. We know about them, but also making sure we're always supporting the small ones to grow. Because we've found that there's been times when the second you say, I've worked with a tier 1 company, then it just gives instant credibility. So that's the type of thing that we want to look for.
But we still need you. We're still small. We get this feedback that like everything looks so great and so polished and your services are so commercial. I'm like, we still need you to work with us. It doesn't just happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. But sometimes there was one business a few years ago that we were working with, and they just couldn't break in, and so they kept tendering. And I thought the second that they get onto one of our jobs, then everyone else will then say, oh, okay, well, they must be all right then. And it just gives that credibility that then they can actually tender where the work is, as opposed to just trying to stick with one company.
Monique, what are the rules for this kind of procurement? What is social procurement? And is it the same all over the country? Sorry, trick question.
Yeah, such a trick question. No, it's not the same all over the country. We define social procurement as when you buy goods and services and you're obtaining social, environmental or cultural value over and above the value of the goods and services. I'm a procurement professional from way back, and one of the things I'm really seeking to accomplish for the profession is for buying decisions to be made not just on the basis of price and capability, but also what is the social, environmental or cultural impact that supply can have. What a tremendous opportunity. If this country spends $1 trillion on goods, services and construction, if we can just divert 1% of that to organisations who create social, environmental or cultural benefit, the world's literally a better place, and all we've done is shifted 1% of this country's spend.
So what are the versions of social procurement between states? I know that we've worked quite a lot in the Victorian space, and I understand that there are metrics that some of the projects have. In Queensland, we haven't had that much experience there, but I understand that there are not metrics. In New South Wales, it's about to be signed. We're waiting. So from your point of view, what are the main differences between the different frameworks, and is there one that the federal government is looking at?
Look, I think it's not unfair to say that the Victorian social procurement framework is, in terms of pure social procurement, leading edge. It's more mature. It's been around since 2018 and has had a significant effect on the social enterprise, in particular ecosystem in Victoria. We've really seen that that demand do make change. We see social procurement at a federal level with the Indigenous procurement policy, and that take-up's been incredible. And the work that Supply Nation do with Indigenous-owned businesses has had a real impact in generating economic empowerment for Indigenous communities. And then it kind of peters off a little bit. So almost all the states talk about creating value over and above the value of the goods and services that are being procured. All the state governments and the federal government recognise the opportunity that procurement spend has to play in the sort of support for marginalised people and communities. But over time, we're starting to see a push towards more specificity around what governments are asking for. And hopefully very soon, we'll be seeing something quite significant out of New South Wales.
Amazing. I wanted to go to Craig before we go to individual social enterprises, because you're a slightly different breed. You're an intermediary, if I could, for the lack of better words. Can you tell us about your initiative, what it does, and tell us what intermediaries do and the value in the space?
Thank you, Kyriakos. Yes, well, as an intermediary, our role is to act between the social enterprise and what's out there. We're in the marketplace, whether that be with government, whether that be with the consumer, whether that be connections to professional networks, connections to funds, impact funds, whether that be investment, etc. So the Millhouse Ventures, we're a Canberra-based intermediary, and our purpose when we were established nearly 10 years ago in 2016 was to create or help create a social enterprise ecosystem in the capital region. And the capital region is more than just the nation's capital. It's all the areas around there, from Wagga and Goulburn and all those regional areas. So to do that, what we do is we run a series of programs. And if you think of an enterprise, not just a social enterprise, but an enterprise and its stages of development, from the idea to early stage startup and that sort of early adoption, to I'm now up and trading, and now I'm up and trading and I need to scale and grow and I'm looking for impact and investment. We run programs that match exactly that stages of development. And we become, if you like, a central place where social entrepreneurs can come to with trust. So when you're operating a business, you don't have a marketing department or a purchasing department or a, whatever it is. And so we become the place that once our social enterprises come through our programs and get operating, they can come back to us, say, hey, we need some legal advice. Who do you recommend? Who's in this space? Who knows what we do? Who might be interested in pro bono and those sorts of things. So we play a role to help people understand where their business could work. And then if it does work, then how do we help them sustain that opportunity?
So we've got the social sector, we've got the certifying body, we have buyers, we have intermediaries. But what do social enterprises do? Let's talk to our guests. We'll start with Rebecca. Tell us about your social enterprise, what it does, how did it start? Give us a pitch.
Future Tech is a neurodivergent-led social enterprise that exists to inspire the neurodivergent minds of the future to build a better world for everyone. We do this through the delivery of neuroaffirming programs, as well as community capacity building, so going out and supporting the rest of the community to better support neurodivergent individuals. And we also hire neurodivergent people to design and deliver our programs to neurodivergent young people.
Sally, what do you do at SheForce?
SheForce is a certified social enterprise focused on supporting women and minorities into the construction industry. We offer 4 main services to the industry, the first one being a group training organisation where we can support our clients with apprentices and trainees within their business. We also have recruitment services where we recruit from entry-level roles up to senior management. We offer labour hire services where we can support our clients with additional top-up labour on site. And then we have SheForce Gender Equality Program, which is a cultural change program that we built in partnership with Victoria University to support construction work sites to be safe and respectful for everyone.
Russia, tell us about your enterprise.
First of all, it's a Syrian catering business. And the reason why it was founded just because I wanted to share the culture, the food, the stories of Syria. When I came to Australia, I realized that not enough people know anything about Syria or the people of Syria. So it just happened, started in a fundraising event to share the food, and people loved it. And this is how I started the business. I was not in catering. I'm not a chef, but I'm a daughter of a chef. So it happened just like this. And I was so happy because people were interacting with a positive, how to say it?
Attitude.
Yes, positive attitude, and they were asking more questions about the Syrian food and the culture, and education, how people live there, and because I was surprised, Syria and Damascus was the oldest inhabited city in the world, and some people didn't know anything about it. They knew about the countries around it, but they didn't know anything about Syria. So I started catering. I started to do pop-up kitchens, and now this year I'm focusing more about on cooking classes.
I can vouch for those. I've been to one. Don't go if you're on a diet.
The happiest moment for me is when people come and share their experience and their positive feedback. So it acts like a bridge between Syria and Australia. Most of my customers are Australian. I don't have Middle Eastern. Unfortunately, I would love to have in the future, but most of them are Australians. And this is something I really wanted to focus on. Through my kitchen, I have so many women who worked with me through this journey, and they are also from different backgrounds because we share one kitchen, which is Food Lab Kitchen, and this is where I met them. And some of them are starting new businesses, so they work with me to support their business and grow. And this is something I'm so happy about also. I would love to one day have my cooking show. One day, I don't know when.
Well, there's a camera in front of you.
This is my dream, either to do it from here or to be like a journey between Syria and Australia. I don't know how it will be, but this is something I would love to do, and I can see it. It's coming, but I don't know when.
Well, good luck and bon appetit.
Thank you.
And I think it's fitting that we go from Russell's Kitchen to the chocolates, Fiona.
I'm a proud Wiradjuri woman, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional lands we're all gathered on today and pay respects to elders past and present. I started my business, Chocolate on Purpose, as Australia's first Indigenous chocolate company, and it's a female-led, regionally based certified social enterprise, creating gourmet premium chocolate sourced from sustainable and ethically grown beans, palm oil free and certified fair trade, infused with the ancient wisdom and delicious taste of Australian native botanicals. But my mission goes a lot deeper than that. Despite the Australian bush food industry being driven by Indigenous cultural knowledge, there's less than 2% representation of Indigenous people in the $300 million Australian botanical supply chain. So I source my native ingredients from Indigenous growers where I can, while at the same time building a First Nations-led supply chain. My customers are the conscious consumer and corporates who have strong ESG goals, who want their chocolate to be delicious but also make a difference as well. And if I think about what I want my legacy to be, it's chocolate for good.
How amazing. I want to hear your views on how Indigenous enterprise and social enterprise overlaps, because I don't think there's enough understanding about that. So how do you identify first as a business, and what was easier for you? Was one pathway or the other?
I didn't set out to create a social enterprise. I think that basically most Indigenous business is to some extent a social enterprise because it's innate within us that we don't just think of ourselves inside the business. Sure, we want to create self-empowerment. I'm not getting any younger. I need an exit strategy to retirement. But always within that is this thought of how can it benefit Moab and my community? And so I started my business 12 years ago, quickly became aware of the complexities in my supply chain, and I made made business decisions from that point where I wanted to make a difference. And then with the native ingredients, I just felt that it was terribly unjust, that there was less than 2% participation, and that really hasn't increased very much since I started my business. So I advocate wherever I can. And I think that that's the difference. Those beliefs were embedded into my business without any thought to where that was leading me. In fact, it became quite a shock when somebody said to me, "You're a social enterprise," and I was going, "No, I'm not." But then thanks to social traders, it turned out I was making a lot of decisions that meant that I wasn't making as much money as I could because I was returning that investment back into community.
You're also award-winning. You've got a Telstra, a finalist for a Telstra, is that correct?
Yes.
Talk to us, because we're part of the same alumni, and I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of you.
To be quite honest with you, I don't seek out these awards. People nominate me. And I just feel like, when you ask me about, why am I Indigenous and a social enterprise? It's because I have a lot of respect, and in Wiradjuri culture we have a word called Yinjamara, and it speaks to respect, honour, gratitude, go slowly to do proper way. So when somebody takes their time to nominate me, I feel that I can't at least take it to the next level, because we're all busy, right? We don't even post when we scroll on social media. So for somebody to take that moment in time, so then I take it to the next level and see where it'll go. And the Telstra Award is not easy. You go through multiple levels, and then you have a final interview, and knocked me down when I was a finalist for New South Wales. I receive Indigenous Business Awards, and something that was really exciting was that my plant-based chocolate received a World Taste Award from expert chefs. So French chefs. So,
I mean, we were finalists in the same year, and it was so exciting to see another social enterprise do that. So it's just really interesting to see that social enterprise is awarded in so many different areas, but people still don't quite understand what a social enterprise is. Can you tell us a little bit about the Reconnect project and some of the milestones and some of the barriers that you might have had?
So the Reconnect project is on a mission to close Australia's digital divide by distributing refurbished mobile technology to people who otherwise wouldn't have access to it. And underneath that, we also provide training and employment to neurodivergent young adults who are interested in tech repair and can't otherwise get a foot into the industry. We started in 2019 with a very modest $5,000 in crowdfunding, and now we have 10 staff. We work with 150 social service agencies to distribute the technology to people in need, and we've distributed 3,577 pieces of tech out into the community. I think the biggest struggle for us, and it certainly is echoed by other people, is we're a social enterprise. We're also a registered charity, which opens up philanthropic funding for us. But as a social enterprise, we're trying to break into a very competitive e-waste market. The buyback market for mobile technology is big business, and trying to convince a corporate to use us and donate their technology to us rather than sending it through an e-waste pathway has been difficult, because, again, once you get the first customer, then you're likely to get another. But it's getting that first person and showing that you've got the street cred and you're reliable when you actually don't have a marketing budget to even sell yourself.
What would be an ask that you have from, the powers to be, the government, the market? What would be one ask that your business would have to take it to the next level?
The big thing for us is to utilise our service from a procurement perspective by our e-waste service. The difference between us and other e-waste organisations is we don't shred the devices, we refurbish them. We try and keep things in operation for longer. If we can get organisations choosing to use us for their fleet of decommissioned mobile phones, tablets, laptops, then it gives us a constant supply of technology coming in that we can refurbish, and it gives us a viable pathway as well in terms of providing some of those for sale to the general public, which helps us to also then generate the funds we need to run the charitable side.
Let's talk. There's two men that talk about period products. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Talk to me.
So Pixii is a social enterprise started about 4.5 years ago with my wife Nina and me. And yes, it's about period products. So let's just move on past that. I am nearly 5 years into now talking about period products every day. So it's not weird for me if it isn't for you.
No, it's not weird. It's like what we do in social enterprise, our passions can come from so many different areas that people might not understand. And I think that's what's so powerful about this discussion, that, we've got period products, we've got chocolate, we've got food, we've got an intermediary, we've got a neurodivergent enterprise, women in construction, and we've got an autistic enterprise that is producing this. So I think that's where the difference of the social sector is, that you're not expecting where the vulnerability comes from, where the passion comes from, and who is your true beneficiary. I think that's the power of our sector, and that's what I love about your project. Like, I've seen you pitch, and I still remember it. I didn't remember your name, but I remember the pitch. So
Thank you.
Go deeper into it and tell us a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you've pointed out, it's all sort of everyday, recruitment, period products, chocolate. It's stuff that can be used every day. And if buyers make these everyday decisions to buy these everyday items from a social enterprise, then you're just compounding impact with small decisions every single day that will build to so much over time. And so that's part of why Nina and I wanted Pixii from day one to be a social enterprise, and we've been certified with social traders since the first year of operation. And what we do is we produce dispensers to go in facility bathrooms. So that's in offices, mine sites, construction sites, schools, universities, basically anywhere where there are menstruating people and a bathroom. We put in the dispensers and then provide 100% organic cotton pads and tampons to fill them, so that period products are available where they're needed, whenever they're needed, for free, just like soap, just like toilet paper, basically just like every other basic sanitary supply that is expected in a bathroom. And this came about because my wife Nina went to a conference for executive business women, and there was a speaker there talking about who was being caught out. And this was 5 years ago. It's less so a taboo subject now. I think those taboos are breaking down, but back then, periods is not something most people talked about. And so Nina was shocked when basically 3,000 women in this room put their hand up for, yes, I've been caught out at work before without a period product when I needed one. And she came home and talked to me about it, and I had no idea. Not something I've ever had to think about before, but it sparked this conversation that has led to this so far 5-year journey of, well, it's affecting pretty much everyone, and it's so easy to fix. And we can do that, and we can supply products that are good for people. They're organic, plastic-free, carbon negative, so as good for the environment as we can make them as well. Cheap and easy and effective for a business to provide. And then we donate 50% of profits to girls' education as well, to help close that gender gap from an early age upwards. And so that's how we've tried to wrap what we do in good for planet, good for people, and good for gender equality, but also good for the customer, so that we would like to think that we are the best option for a business or a facility manager or a building, even without the social impact side of things. And the fact that we layer that on top is just a bonus.
I'm going to come to you, Mel. When a company like John Holland is thinking about procurement, and this is me from the outside, do you think of any possible product that you can get, or do you just look at, for example, let's recruit some people from Sally? Do you think of the period products that can come from social enterprise?
We do, and we've just put some in actually, which is good. I think it was about 3 weeks ago we put them in. But I think the thing for us, what we do is we actually look at all of our spend, and then we look at, how can we change that? What are we going to do? And so we're starting from site establishment, where you're basically looking at, every single thing that needs to happen on the site, and then we can say, all right, here's a company that we've been using. Here's an alternative. here's another alternative, and just embedding that in. Probably one of my favourite ones that we did some toilet rolls with a social enterprise, and on the back of all the toilet doors we had a bit of a page just about what the social enterprise does, a bit of a sustainability, couple of facts there, because we thought we've got a captive audience there.
Good.
And people really got on board, and that actually helped people that went to another site say, oh, well, this is just what we do. And then there was no thought about, using another supplier. So that's really the key, is if we can just make it business as usual, this is what we do, you don't need to think about other suppliers.
That's what Social Trader says, business as usual. But I'll get to you in 1 second. Does cost matter at that point? And does the quality of the service matter? Because we often hear from, I'm going to go in a rant, we often hear from enterprises, oh, we'll go to the social enterprise and it doesn't matter, it's just because we want to do some good. But what we say as social entrepreneurs is our product is as good, if not better, and it costs the same. What does the buyer think?
Yes, absolutely. So when you see a cost difference, so even in that toilet paper example, we were looking at cost comparison, and once we made it quite bulk, then there was like about $10 difference, and we just went, go for it, let's just do it. For something like that was just a no-brainer. But I think when we're looking at, there has been times where I've seen double the cost, and it's like, well, that's going to be really hard to work out. So we look at, if we do it in bulk, can we change it? How can we do things to actually make it part of our supply chain? And when it comes to product, it always has to be good quality. So what I usually do is, when I'm talking to projects, is basically, if we just look at it like a commercial business, and then introduce afterwards, this is the impact that it's having. So we've had things like, fruit coming in, and then after a couple of weeks, we've said, hey, this is the impact it's actually having. So that's really the key, is just getting people engaged as a commercial business, and then showing the impact afterwards, and then people are sold on that, because then they're really on board with the journey.
Monique, what do you think are the barriers that buyers have in moving to purchasing from a social enterprise?
We talk about 3 main types of barriers. I think there's infinite numbers of barriers that a reluctant buyer can throw up, but we talk about barriers from a personal level. I don't have the capital within the organisation to take a risk, so that can be an individual barrier, or I see that as woke mind virus. That might be an individual or a personal barrier, and the way to overcome that is different to the way you would overcome an organisational barrier. You might have an organisation that's running on a 2% profit margin. Their ability to take risks is very small, so that's a different barrier that you need to overcome. And then we talk about systemic barriers. So it might be the industry that you're operating in might operate on really skinny margins, or it might have no room for innovation, or no interest in or appetite for social value or creating environmental outcomes. I've yet to meet that industry specifically. Or there might be that broad systemic barriers around no policy. If, it's much easier to get organisations on board in Victoria than it is, say, in the Northern Territory. So that's the way we sort of classify the types of barriers, and then we think about different ways we can address those. And I've got a very long list of ways to overcome those. I really like your suggestion there, Mel, to talk about the quality of the product first, and then to kind of Trojan horse the impact in later. I think that's very clever.
And I do think that Mel hit the nail on the head when she said, when we bought bulk, it made absolute sense. Because for a lot of social enterprises, that's the key. Can we produce enough so we can have economies of scale? Can we provide meaningful employment to enough people so we can continue trading long-term with this particular supplier? Because a small contract might take us through 6 weeks, but a year contract can deliver meaningful impact throughout many layers of the organization. I wanted to just go through another circle and see what were the best moments of building Future Tech that is in such a good spot at the moment. I've seen you grow, but what were also the barriers, and what would be your ask to the people that are watching?
Gosh, I think the entire journey has just been such a beautiful one. I am neurodivergent myself. I started Future Tech really to solve a problem that my brother faced. So he was diagnosed as a child, and I had to wait until 26 for my diagnosis. But Future Tech and starting it and building it really became my kind of North Star through a lot of challenges with mental health and things like that. So it really has just been such a beautiful journey. I think getting to hang out with the young people that we support every Saturday, it's my favorite thing to do. I love learning from them. I love learning from our team. I think probably one of the nicest things that a participant of our programs ever said was he went home to his mum and said, "Mama, I'm so glad that I joined Future Tech. It feels just like I have another family." And this is coming from a kid who was kicked out of an autism social skills program. You would never think it because he is the most beautiful young person, and I couldn't imagine him getting kicked out of anything ever. So it was just really special that he was able to come and find that feeling of home with us, and that's really what we want to create. I guess.
What were some of your business barriers? What was that point that you said, "Oh, I don't think I can do this anymore," and then something happened and you overcame it?
I think it's hard with our model in that we are hiring neurodivergent people who need quite a lot of support. 45% of autistic individuals are living in poverty due to unemployment right now in Australia. It's quite tricky when you're delivering the same kind of support to your staff and your team as you're delivering to your young people and families. So that kind of double, we like to say double impact is a challenge, and finding funding for that is also a big challenge. So I think, yes, funding is always the big barrier, and I think a lot of the time, being autistic, a lot of the opportunities that are out there are not very accessible, particularly like grants programs and a lot of the processes, even for procurement as well. It's not particularly accessible. Sometimes questions are asked in such a way that you think that you're answering them, but actually the question that was asked isn't exactly what they want to know. So there's a lot of that, and interpreting this can be tricky. I think the thing that keeps me grounded and the thing that has always been able to pull me back is access to community. So being able to come along to events like Autistic Pride Day and connect with other autistic entrepreneurs and people who are living and breathing it, and just feel held. I think that for me always brings me back when I feel like it's too hard, it's too much, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Being able to sort of access that is just...
So that access point, and I want to talk to Monique and Craig potentially about that, is our society built in such a way that social entrepreneurs do not have access to the right funding? We are our own beneficiaries at times, and we see, big groups of social enterprises that could have been just everyday business people, and small enterprises with no language skill or, extra access needs not to be able to penetrate. What are the pathways for people like us?
Controversial opinion from me. I think in particular for less mature organisations or smaller social enterprises or enterprises that have significant costs around delivering on that social purpose, actually you want to avoid procurement processes. I think large organisations' procurement processes are a significant drain on time and resource within your organisation, and there are typically ways in that are around the procurement process. It might be a spot buy process, it might be a below threshold process. We try to encourage organisations, and John Holland do a great job of this, and I'm sure you've got ways into your organisation that don't involve the barriers of procurement. But I think for that sunk time and that sunk cost that goes into an unsuccessful tender can be really crippling for a social enterprise. And my advice is typically try to find a way around that. Or if you are going to participate in a procurement pathway, make sure you're generating the intellectual property that you can use next time. Assume you're going to lose. Assume that the assets that you generate through the process are valuable to you, even if you don't win that contract, I think is probably my procurement professional's advice. Craig might have a...
What do you think? Is our system by default leaving small enterprises out? Are we seeing some change? Is that getting better? You've been around for a while.
Well, the thing to recognise is that when you're running a social enterprise, you're trying to create a business that on the one hand is sustainable, that any other businesses out there is struggling to do. It's not easy to run a business. But the other side of it is you're addressing the area of impact. So in your case, it's a productivity deficit of onboarding people to do a job that you can employ other people to do that don't have those difficulties. And the Cafe Stepping Stone I mentioned, the Australians of the Year, they employ migrant and refugee women. So to run a cafe is a really difficult, there's hundreds of cafes around this country, closing business every day. So they have that dual side of things that they have to address. And that's where the funders, people who are in the philanthropic area, government grants, etc., need to understand that it's just not an activity that you're funding. You're actually funding the productivity deficit or the impact side of things as well. And that dual role needs to be recognised and supported. And I'm sure not everyone's there yet. And the other thing to recognise in social enterprise is, I don't know the number, but I would hazard a guess that the vast majority of founders come from lived experience. There's a big difference between the entrepreneurs out there trying to establish a Canva and an Atlassian, that big unicorn, and people who are just trying to run a future tech, right? And so therefore, the other aspect to that is that they don't come from corporate or commercial backgrounds. So actually, that's the reason why the intermediaries exist, is to provide that support to people who don't have that commercial or corporate background as they progress through their business cycle and stage. So that either we can be a solution for them, or we can introduce you to social traders or to government or to John Holland if that's necessary. So that's why the different sides of the ecosystem need to collaborate and support one another in this journey.
So I'm a little bit different. So I do come from lived experience. For me, women are the future face of poverty in Australia, and I started SheForce because I'm a financially independent woman. And the lived experience is that I was in a situation that I was able to leave because I was financially independent. And I didn't realise that how important it is to be financially independent until I had to leave a situation that I was in. So I started SheForce because women are retiring in poverty, and I wanted to support women to become financially independent, because then they would have choices. So that was really, really important for me to support women on that journey. I chose construction because my whole family is in the construction industry, and I actually was working at the superannuation fund for that supported the industry. So I thought, I'd made great relationships with Tier 1 and Tier 2 construction working in that job. But then I was like, if I ever get made redundant, I want to start something to support women in building careers in the construction industry. And 2 weeks later, I got made redundant. So talk about divine intervention. I basically was pushed into getting in this industry, and 4 years on, we have great reputation within this space. We've got a team of 6 people in the office and around 40 to 50 people on site. And now we are in the process of, as we've become that GTO, now I'm looking for a GTO manager to be able to start our GTO business and really focus on moving our people out of labour hire into apprenticeships and traineeships for that sustainable and secure career pathway.
I will never forget the day that you walked in our office. So Sally walked in and said, I have this dream, I have this idea, and I want to do this, and she had all these papers, and I was like, oh, this needs so much branding. But she was so powerful. But because I understand the barrier, we wanted to help and jumped on board to do your branding and all that work, beautiful work that we've done together. But this power that you have and Rebecca has and everybody else here has sometimes is misinterpreted. And people don't see that behind the social entrepreneur, there's a vulnerable person with lived experience. And that passion comes from, a lot of angst. Like, I obviously don't understand what it is like to be female, but being autistic in this society is like you constantly have to mask. And sometimes, like, you go home and you're so exhausted, so the next day you have to just go on, put on a face and pitch again to this perfection. And the buyer will the buyer ever understand that?
I think so. So, because I think there's a lot of times that we all have, we know people or we have our own lived experience, and so that's where it is so easy to connect with. And I think that when people see themselves in someone that's gone out and done that really hard work and supporting a particular cohort, it's that instant connection is the thing that actually draws people in, because what we will always understand is that we are a link in the chain in connecting you to what we are procuring. So that's always the thing that we realise, that we've got to make those connections and then interpret that to our teams and say, this is why we should do this.
I think of people like you as our translators to the businesses, that you explain what we mean and what we do and what the whole thing's all about.
Can I just mention, I remember when I spoke so I went to John Holland and I actually had to present at one of their events. I think it was late last year. And when I spoke at the event, some of the commercial directors came up to you afterwards and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, like, she's commercially driven. Yeah. And that's my background. So I've come from a corporate commercial background, but I've always had a social heart. So for me, I've always wanted to support, like I spent 3 months in Calcutta with the Missionaries of Charity working with disabled girls. When I lived in London, I supported an organisation that we mentored and coached young Muslim girls from social housing. So I've always had this social heart, but I've worked in the corporate space or government my whole career. So for me, I've found my dream. I've started my dream job. Like, this is where I come to work and be who I am. And yes, I am exhausted because I'm on the construction roller coaster. But I love what I do and I'm passionate about what I do. But it has been a journey.
I wanted to hear. I specifically said let's be two men to talk about period products because I understand that would have been a barrier in pitching. Was that a barrier? Was it something else that was more difficult in building your business? What was those moments that you thought, I need some help here?
I think it wasn't a barrier, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, Nina and I assumed that at the start, just with our family situation, I was going to be needing to do most of the sort of presentation, and we assumed that might be a hiccup, but it really wasn't. Most people don't care. As soon as we outlaid what we're doing and why, I think pretty much everyone's capable of connecting. We've been doing this 5 years, thousands of conversations. I can think of 2 in that whole time where it was slightly awkward and it wasn't enough to derail anything. So that, I don't think that was really an issue. I think growing a social enterprise, we've faced probably the same challenges that all small businesses and social enterprises face. Most small businesses don't make it 2 years. Social enterprise adds a layer of complexity, and it's already been covered here. People talking about the funding issue there. So I won't go on too much about that. For us, we're a small business trying to grow, reinvesting in that growth, and then that little bit of profit we have left, we're giving away half of it. So that's not very attractive for most lenders. So getting capital is a challenge, but I think a challenge that the industry sector or the commercial space in Australia can address is on the buyer side, and it's great to hear of roles like head of social impact. Right, that's an organisation making a statement, taking a stance about social impact being important, and having someone dedicated to looking at that. But finding the right person in big organizations is always a challenge. And we've found that even once getting in, finding the right person to take you, to the next state or the next department or so on. So navigating internal hierarchies can be hard. And it's just, about getting that next level. It's been discussed already as well, how no one really wants to be the first. It's a chicken and the egg. And so getting the first customer was very hard. Getting the first multi-site customer, they all said, well, have you supplied any other multi-sites? And then the same for interstate. Have you supplied anyone else in this state? And so on and so forth. And so we've been doing this for a while now. We support about 220,000 women every month with free period products across Australia and New Zealand, about 2,000 different sites. And so we've got that scale now where we supply 4 or 5 of the ASX top 10. And so it's not such a hard conversation anymore. But to break that next barrier again and again and again over the last 5 years, it's finding those organizations that are willing to be the first one, to shake your hand and go, right, let's try this. And then prove that you can do it so that the next buyer has that confidence to just walk straight through, usually on a much easier process. If you're out there and you are a tenant, a landlord, building manager, and have a bathroom where you're supplying soap and toilet paper, but not period products, why? Doesn't have to be with us. Send the office manager down in the supermarket. I don't mind. Just make period products available for all your people. It's really easy. The other ask was a bit more structural and links back to what you said about tell us when it gets hard. So if you're in procurement, assessing a tender, in any kind of buyer position like that and considering a number of options, including a social enterprise, go for it. Take the risk. Sometimes for a social enterprise like us, just getting that next level up requires someone to just give us a chance. And if no one does, social enterprises won't flourish. And if I understand there's risk barriers, talk to the people doing the tender, talk to the suppliers vying for your business and say, okay, we're worried about your time frame for delivery, your capacity to do bulk, and have that conversation rather than assume you know what they can and can't do.
Just on the ask, I would love to see some procurement policies that enable autistic and neurodivergent-led businesses to thrive, particularly with things like the National Autism Strategy and the implementation of the National Autism Strategy. Well, why can't autistic people be leading that? We can benefit autistic people as the end users because anything designed by us will be better for us. I'm sorry to say. Not sorry to say. But also that investment into autistic-led businesses can benefit people like you and I.
I agree 100%. And this Saturday, we're having a really big gathering in our autistic conference for the year where a lot of entrepreneurs are going to share, I think, very similar sentiment. I wanted to go to Russia.
I always think of, especially from last year, when we did, there is always carnival and festival during Ramadan time, and it happens always in Lakemba or these areas. Yeah. I would love to see something in the city that brings the people here, like in the rocks or anywhere. They don't need to go there to celebrate. We need to bring these people here, and this is how we can connect all these people together. I would love to see something like this. This is my dream. All these ladies who have these talents, and they are really chefs from who cook from home to come to these areas to share their culture and food. This is something I would love to see. For my business, promote more the Middle Eastern food, not as support for people who come as refugees or migrants. It's just because this is a good food. We don't want them to share this only in their particular events, which has specific names like multicultural event, women of color. I don't want to see this. I want to see us as a part of all these celebrations that's happening in Australia. I would love to see this.
Becoming mainstream. Yeah, business as usual. Greg, what would be your ask as an intermediary? I heard you loud and clear before that you said if we don't exist, all these other projects that we're helping do not exist. What would be that ask for intermediaries?
Not just generally for intermediaries, but I think for the sector. I think my struggle at the moment is around impact investing. And there's a real disconnect between the money that exists, the capital markets, and the needs at the ground level. And I don't see it being that complicated getting one to the other, and one not necessarily generating the types of returns that that sector requires, but them recognising, as you were saying earlier, about if you take 1% of your $1 billion capital fund and create an opportunity, but you work with intermediaries who are the people that are linking to the reconnects and the chocolates on purposes and et cetera, then we can create that pathway really seamlessly. It can be recorded, it can be audited, it can show, address the ESG requirements, it can link money to purpose. So that would be my ask, is that we find ways to encourage people with the money to connect through intermediaries to on-the-ground social enterprises to enable them to function in their business. And I don't mean link it to a specific activity. I'm talking about cash flow. Just enabling people, trusting them that that's what they do. And particularly if they're certified with social traders, then you have the accountability of their accounts. Also, it will show and record the data to show the growth of the sector, and based on real figures, not assumptions. Let me put it that way. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get as many of our alumni certified so that that data is captured to show the size of the market in the capital region. And then we're also talking to money to say, if you're interested in social impact, you need to consider investing in the ecosystem builders and enable us to provide cash, money, to enable people to operate their business. We're not just talking about handouts here. That's not what any of you want, but because we can report on impact, we can report on numbers, we can report on finances till the cows come home. So you'll get your knowledge and feedback as to how that money was spent.
So, I totally agree, money for intermediaries, but I also want money direct to social enterprise. I cannot tell you how many times we've participated in funding grounds, and, even last year with the federal government, proclaiming that money will go directly to social enterprise, and money only goes to really big social enterprise. And, one of the reasons why I put these almost community consultations together is to say that, there's many kinds of social enterprises. Some might be sophisticated, some might not be sophisticated. We are sophisticated enough, and we want direct funding, because otherwise this doesn't happen. So there's room for everybody in our sector, and it's good to see a bit of movement in the federal space as well. Fiona, what is your ask? And again, you come from so much strength in your branding and your product, but what is something that we can't see that you want help with?
Because I'm an observer, and what I feel in what I see is that we have to break paradigms, because I think that we're trying to fit into a structure that is this shape, and those businesses, not all of them, but many businesses and government, they want to see how they can make it work inside that paradigm. But as an example is the lending, we can't just go on assessing loans the same way we've always done. We need to throw away what we think we know, and then look at how we can foster this environment that we're talking about is really great. And so we need some big thinkers who aren't afraid to do it differently, and I think that will really provide an ecosystem we can thrive in. I've bootstrapped my business from the very beginning, so my growth has not been fast and at times very frustrating. And what I'd say is that many times I'm not attractive to lenders because I am older, I'm single. A lot of times the business owner has a partner working full time, and at the end of the day you get assessed as if you're getting a loan. Even when they call it patience loans and things like that, it's still basically based on, fortnightly income. And when you work full-time in your business, that's not, always a linear experience. So
Is there a disadvantage being regional?
There's regional disadvantage in that we're paying more for freight, and I have to come to Sydney and do supply runs and pick things up. But I'm often asked, I'm told by Indigenous lending organisations, go and contract manufacture, and we'll give you the money to get your first, product made, and then you'll be able to sell that and start to grow your business. But nothing is as it looks, and the way to help Indigenous people is not to do it for them, which is what, we're hearing a lot about. And if I take the biggest expense to my business and give it to a manufacturing company who virtually none are other Indigenous businesses, that money is not coming into the black circular economy. It's not going back into community. So there are two reasons why I won't contract manufacture, because all of the beans in my chocolate are traceable to the farm collective where they're grown. And so I know it's sustainably and ethically sourced and that it's fair trade. And I need to be able to also show that I am building an Indigenous-led supply chain, and that's not happening if I give my manufacturing to a white business. So I need to be able to do it myself, and so I need to obtain a small production line so that I can grow my capacity and I can begin employment. Of that, less than 2% I shared of Indigenous leadership in the bush food supply chain. Even fewer of those are women, yet traditionally we're the matriarchal holders of these plant knowledge systems, and we shared that through storytelling. And so I'd love to employ women, get them into the space. When we engage in the tasks of our ancestors, it triggers a healing response. We remember through experience. We never forgot who we were or what we were about. It went inside because it wasn't safe. We remember, and that's what happens to me when I open that bag of bush food and I can smell those aromas, and I want to be able to offer that to other women. So the funding to be able to obtain that small production line, increase my production by 10, employ other older Indigenous women to also address the social isolation and the homelessness issue of all women over 45 in this country, and be able to really grow my impact that way and to contribute to the well-being of my community.
What I'm hearing is like breaking down the structures of privilege. It's like using a real intersectional lens in designing systems and just going way beyond just female entrepreneurship or autistic entrepreneurship or Indigenous business, like trying to understand how they all intersect and how it really works. As we're closing this session, I wanted to start with you, Monique, and hear about Social Traders' vision for the next few years and where Australia is maybe positioned internationally as well. And then if anyone wanted to share any last thoughts, now is your chance to do so. Monique.
Thanks, Kyriakos, and thanks for bringing together such an amazing group of folk to help us think about different ways for us to be creating social impact. It's incredible. And I think one of the real advantages that you see with working with social enterprises is that incredible diversity, not just of business models, but of beneficiary groups. We've talked about marginalised women, we've talked about neurodivergent people, we've talked about Indigenous people, we've talked about migrants and refugees, we've talked about women in construction. It's such a compelling case to be working with social enterprises, and I've rarely seen, you make the pitch, you talk about the beneficiaries that can benefit from switching your procurement spend to good, and you see people's faces light up. You really see people change when they understand the stories that sit behind what the opportunity is. Social Traders' broad vision is to be creating a fairer and more equitable Australia, but we want to make business for good business as usual. And so really amplifying voices, social enterprise voices, to talk about the benefit that they can create, continuing to have conversations with government at all tiers, at all the 3 tiers of government. We want to see action from the federal government. We want to see policy from the federal government. But at the same time, we also need to see from the federal government support and capacity building and capability building for the sector. This is a supply-demand challenge. And if the federal government were to turn on a policy tomorrow mandating the use of social procurement or even social value within supply chains, we'd have a supply issue. So we actually need to see investment we need to see a commitment through policy, and this is a call out to the New South Wales government as well. We need to see commitment on the policy side, from the demand side, but we also need to see investment in capability building and investment in the sector for all of the reasons you weary, well-worn but wonderful people have described today.
How are we faring in the global stage? Is Australia doing okay?
We're doing great.
Okay.
We're doing really
can
well.
sleep well.
We can, yes, we should be very proud. We have a long way to come. Social traders' social enterprise growth is the fastest in the world. There's no one in the world that's seeing the rate of change that we're enjoying here in this country, which is incredible. Places like the UK, where we have the Social Value Act, and that's been mandated across the board, you obviously see significant amounts of social change there. The United States is possibly not worth talking about at this point. I think they had done some incredible work over a really long period of time, working with diverse supply groups, and sadly, I think we're going to see that all unravel.
Is it more philanthropy there, though, or is it structured?
No, there is policy in the United States about the use of African American owned businesses, veteran owned businesses. There's a lot of legislation in place that weird man is going to have to unravel. But maybe let's park that. We see some really great work out of Canada. We see some really great work out of Scotland, and even our colleagues as close as New Zealand are doing some incredible things. It's catching on. Like it's a movement. It's not going away, I'm afraid, Mr. Funny-looking man in the United States. We're here to stay. There's a business case behind it, and it works for the head, it works for the heart, and with organisations like we have here today, we've got the hands to actually do the work.
Did you want to say something? I could hear you. Yeah, go on.
I do. I didn't actually say anything, but I do.
I felt
Probably to all the social enterprises, what's really important is to stay passionate and tell us when it gets hard. So tell your social impact person when it gets hard. Tell us what you want to do as well. There's many times we've spoken to social enterprises and they've said, this is what I offer, this is what I'd love to do. We remember it all. We always remember it. And then in time we think, oh, hang on, they were wanting to get into this space. Here's an opportunity. We can do something. So just tell us everything. And then we can filter that down to our teams and we can filter it down to the right people. But just tell us when things get hard. Whenever I have a new business come onto a project, I always ask the team how they're going, and then I always ask the business, how are we to you? So it's a two-way street, so that we'll make sure that you're getting looked after. But equally so, we just need to hear where you want to go next and what you want to do, because we want to help facilitate.
If I got one thing from this conversation is that we might be a number of diverse social entrepreneurs that come from different points of view and working on different social problems, but we all working on the same topic in creating a better society that's more equitable, that is easier to live and prosper. And thank you for being part of this discussion. It's really important to us. It's our second Think Social. There'll be another one coming very soon. I'm Kyriakos Gold. This is a Just Gold production. Thank you very much.